Economics, Form 1. We are now looking at Lesson 2. So, Lesson 2, we are going a bit deeper into the terms or the words that deal with the science of economics: production, distribution, and consumption. So we are going a bit deeper into these words. Now, look at the color pictures. On one side, you will see a factory machine that involves production. You will see a factory machine that involves production. On the other hand, you will see crates of drinks. Crates of drinks. This is an aspect of distribution that is making available what you have produced to the consumer. Immediately after the crates, you will see a sign. It is a sign for the Orange telephone system. This is also an aspect of distribution, making available the product to the consumer. You can do it through advertisement, through letting him know that that product can be had here. If you look again on the road, you will see a motorcycle man who could be carrying some passenger. That is consumption. Somebody is already consuming a service. So there you see that we have gone kind of through that. Now, if we look at, as we said, we described these three words, and we're looking a bit deeper into them. Let's start again with production. During production, you have a process, and during this process, we transform materials. That's, we transform one material, or we improve upon the form of that material from one form to another. As we said, in production, we produce commodities, not only goods. So transforming a material could have a good as the end product. But we also use activities to produce a service, like the activity of a barber. So the end product is a service. So that is what the consumer gets. So production is the process of transforming materials or activities into a useful form as required by consumers. So production, therefore, involves a process and an end result or product, which is called the commodity. So to best explain this, we transform wheat, which we consider as the raw material, into flour. So, wheat, we get it from the farm. We transform it. That's already another first form of transformation into flour. Then we can still transform flour into a higher product. So during the transformation, the next product is more refined, it is higher. So that is what we are saying. We could still transform the flour and consider flour now as a material instead of a raw material. As a raw material into bread, which is the commodity. So let's take it all over again. If we transform wheat, which is a raw material, through the production process, we get the commodity, which is flour. So flour is sold as a commodity. Now, some other producer takes flour, uses it as a commodity, or as a material, uses it as a material and transforms it into bread, which he now considers a commodity, or biscuits. Let's take another example. If we take sugar cane as a raw material, we can transform it into sugar. A baker will now still use sugar as a material and transform it into a higher commodity, which is consumable. If we take leather and transform it into shoes, the leather is a material, the shoes is a commodity. So you see, that is what happens during production. At least we have looked at production, of all what we have seen here is production of goods, like transforming cotton into cloth. So we have transformed production of goods. So in production of goods, we have the base material, which through processing is transformed into a good. Now, materials that are used in production process could be quite raw. That is some of them. Some of the materials that are used in production process could be quite raw. Is e.g. sand. Imagine that you just remove sand from a riverbed. Palm nuts, which you have just harvested from the plantation. Palm kernels, which have just been obtained from the nuts. Or hides that you obtain from after slaughtering cattle. Even wheat is still raw, although it comes from the farm. So you could use this as materials in the production process to produce commodities. At the same time, the commodities that you have could already be processed. For example, not the commodities, the materials that you use to produce commodities could already be processed. Like flour is already processed from wheat, but you still use it as a raw material to produce bread. Cement, palm oil, palm kernel oil, leather, these are all processed materials, but they are used in the production of shoes, soap, rubbing oil, construction. So if we look at this chain down here, processing, what does it do? It changes the form of the material, or it improves upon the form of the material, and the end product is a commodity. The end product is a commodity. So we can look at this picture. This is a production line for biscuits. What do they use in making biscuits? They use flour. So flour is the material. The biscuit is the commodity which is sold. Now, how are biscuits sold? All of you here consume biscuits, have consumed biscuits before, or still consume biscuits. They don't just carry biscuits. After this baker produces these biscuits, he doesn't lock them up in a room. He either packages them beautifully, and then he makes them available to the consumer. Either they are carried away to some shop somewhere, or this same baker can arrange for a shop in his own bakery where he displays his biscuits. That is what you call distribution. Now, let's look at a service, because we talked about production of goods. So, the production process of a service. What is a service? This is a valuable action, deed, or effort performed to satisfy a need or to fulfill a demand. This is a valuable action, deed, or effort performed to satisfy a need or to fulfill a demand. And we've given you certain examples: catering, driving, the services of a barber, teaching, hairdressing. So in all of this, we see that it is an action. That is, the production is, you are not transforming any material into anything, you are simply doing an action. A barber is not transforming, he is simply shaving your hair, or a shoe repairer is repairing your shoes. A teacher is simply giving you lectures. So you can see what a service is all about. Now let's look at these pictures here. If you look at the container on the first picture, if you look well, you will see that there are shoes that are hanging there, repaired. This is a shoe repairer's, what we call a shoemaker. That is his shop, and he's inside repairing shoes. So he provides a service. You bring your shoes, he repairs them. He does not produce shoes. He repairs them, so he's giving you a service. Now, on the other picture, you see a taxi which is moving. As you see, the taxi has passengers inside who are enjoying a service. They are being transported. So they are enjoying a service. So that's what we mean by service. Now, as we said, we are looking a bit deeper into these words that deal with economics, or best describe it. We've finished with production, we go to distribution. So we have seen the link between production and consumption. But for consumption to be effective, the good or service must be made available to the consumer. E.g., you cannot have a haircut if you do not know where to find a barber. So, you cannot have a haircut if you do not know where to find a barber. You cannot repair your shoes if you don't know where to find the shoe repairer. So that is why, if you go back to our picture, you will see that the shoe repairer is located in a specific place where he can easily be found by people who want to repair shoes. You will also see that people, when they need their taxi, they get the taxi on the road. If we take Guinness Cameroon as an example, when they bottle their drinks, they don't store the drinks inside Guinness. If they store the drinks in their warehouse, the consumer in Kumba or Manfe or Bamenda will not have access to it. They will not know where to find it, so they will not be able to consume. If textbooks were not brought to bookshops, you will not be able to buy them. So you buy them because they have been brought to bookshops and displayed. So we see the importance of distribution, and distribution does not involve one activity. It involves several activities. For example, taking the product or the service to where it can be consumed. Say you are a farmer and you farm potatoes and plantains. When you harvest the plantains, you don't just keep it in your farm. You take it to the market, because that is where everybody who wants to buy potatoes and plantains, that is where they go to buy. So you transport the product to the market. So if you can understand me, that is what you do. If you are a butcher and you have slaughtered your cow, you don't leave it in the slaughterhouse. You transport to the market where they sell meat. Now, the next aspect of distribution is making the product known to consumers. Now, if you transport a product to the market, but the consumers do not know what it is, will they consume? No. As we said, production. In production, we produce what can be consumed. But then, there are times that the producer produces and induces the consumer to consume. So he produces either what can be consumed or what he knows he will induce the consumer to consume. So if the consumer does not know the product, he will not consume. So another aspect of distribution is making the product to be known. It could be done through adverts, persuasive adverts, or informative adverts, and all that. And the third aspect of distribution is convincing the consumers to want the product. This is where persuasion actually comes in. Persuasive advertisement. At least when you listen to adverts, you see that some of them are very persuasive. Some of them are simply informative. They just tell you that this is a book, buy this book. Another one tells you this book makes very interesting reading, etc., and you are convinced to buy it. Somebody who sells films can just put a film there. Another film will be so advertised that you want to watch it. So these are aspects that fall under the distribution. They take the product to the consumer, or they make the product available to the consumer. Now let's look at one of the aspects of distribution, which we have said: transportation, information, and marketing. Transportation, information, and marketing. This best describes what we call distribution. If we look at this bakery, which is equally a shop, the bakery is well located. It is located, the position of the bakery is such that it can easily be seen, it is accessible, you can park your car, enter it, and buy. The next aspect here is that it is well advertised. Right from a distance, you can see that it is a bakery. You can see here Boulangerie Loifort. Boulangerie Loifort, which in French, if you translate into English, it means big. So it is well advertised. So that's another way of making it available to the consumers. And then look at consumption, which is the other most important aspect in this our word economics, because there's no use producing if your product will not be consumed. So, as we have said, the science of economics involves production, distribution, and consumption. So, we produce only goods and services that are useful. That means that can be consumed. This means they can satisfy a want. You understand? So they can satisfy a want, that's why they are consumed. Consumption is not effective if it does not satisfy a want. Because, take for example, you just get up and eat rice because you see it, but you are not hungry. You don't need it. It doesn't even taste in your mouth. How do you call that kind of consumption? You don't enjoy it, so it does not satisfy a want. We take examples here. We drink water because it satisfies thirst. If we are not thirsty, we don't need to drink it. We don't need to consume it. If we are longing for beer, water may not satisfy us. That is another idea of describing a want. A young man might be very thirsty to drink beer. If you tell him, hey Joe, take this bottle of water and quench your thirst with it, he will tell you, no, that cannot work. Then we come to things like clothes. One person wears clothes because he wants to cover his nakedness, so that he has satisfied a want. He simply wants to cover his nakedness. Another gentleman might want to buy clothes not because he wants to cover his nakedness, but because he wants to show everybody that he is in fashion. So if you give him clothes that are not fashionable, he will not buy them because they will not satisfy him. So what he wants will be fashion. I hope you have understood that. So the process of consumption makes it possible for the producer to continue producing. So the producer bases his production on what the consumer wants. So the producer, before he starts producing, he wants to know what the consumer wants. As we have said, if we took clothes, for example, if the society is such that they wear anything, any kind of ugly sackcloth, he will produce ugly sackcloth and sell. But if it is that kind of fashionable society which wants specific styles and so on, the producer will have to go in for that. Otherwise, his products will not be consumed. So the first thing is, in the process of the process of consumption makes it possible for the producer to continue producing, because when he consumes, he pays for consumption. And the producer now he can be able to acquire the means of production. That's why he bases his production on what the consumer wants. On the other hand, if the producer decides to come out with a new product, the producer can be innovative. He can decide on a new product, but he must be capable of convincing the consumer to want it, as to want that new product. So each day you see new cars, new clothes, new designer shoes, and so on, new perfumes. The producer is aware of the fact that he can convince John or Mary or Martha to like what he has produced. Now, if we look at this picture to describe it, we're looking at consumption. This is the consumption of a service, not only a good. We're looking at consumption, we're looking at goods and services. You understand? The owner of this car has brought his car and parked it because he needs the services of a mechanic. So he's consuming a service. This is a mechanic working on it. The owner of this car is having his car repaired, so he's consuming the service. Now, I would like you to go into Google and check out the definition of economics. Check out the definition of economics.